us here on Cliff Hughes Online on this here Thursday morning. Yes, Thursday, October 9, 2025. 2 days ago, October the 7th, I drew your attention to the second anniversary of the horrible attack on Israel or the Palestinian militant group Hamas, which set off a vicious war going 2 years now. And this morning, the world is observing some good news regarding that conflict. It has been a vicious, horrific war triggered by what Hamas did on the 7th of October 2023. Israel's response has been more than brutal. Some call it genocide. 66,000, many of whom, the majority of whom are children and women, were killed in that strip of land known as Gaza. And many of us look on virtually helpless, wringing our hands in frustration. This morning, there's a peace deal that has been struck, facilitated and driven by the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump. And it's likely to be his biggest diplomatic triumph of his entire presidency. Biden wasn't able to do it. Starmer, the British Prime Minister, Macron, the French Prime President, wasn't able to do it. The UN wasn't able to do it. Only the US really could do it because of its power, leverage over the Israeli far-right government of the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And Trump was able to do it. And from about 8 o'clock, or just before 8 last night, Jamaica time, word came through that, listen, there was a deal. The Israeli strikes on the people of Gaza will come to an end immediately. So the wanton destruction of Gaza and the killing of people is to stop immediately. Hamas has agreed to release, according to President Trump, by Monday, all the remaining Israeli hostages, dead or alive, as a first phase. In return for the release of the hostages, Israel is to release more than 2,000 Palestinian prisoners in its prisons. And I'm watching the story. The Guardian newspaper of London is reporting that it's just after 5 p.m. Thursday evening in Gaza and Israel. And they're giving us updates. As I said, Israel and Hamas have agreed to the initial phase of a ceasefire plan, pausing hostilities in the devastated territory and bringing the best hope yet of a definitive end to a bloody 2-year conflict that has killed tens of thousands, destabilized much of the Middle East, and prompted protests around the world. Yes? Hamas said today that it had agreed the US President's proposal and confirmed the deal included an Israeli withdrawal from the territory and a hostage prisoner exchange. For its part, the Israeli military says it's preparing to pull back troops in Gaza, while the office of the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the agreement to secure the release of hostages will only take effect after receiving cabinet approval. And he has promised to convene a meeting of the Israeli cabinet today. In fact, it will meet at 5 p.m. local time. Yeah. In addition, in another development, the foreign ministers of Germany, Spain, Italy, the United Kingdom, Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Jordan, along with the European Union's chief diplomat, have been invited to a summit in Paris today, convened by the French foreign minister to discuss the Gaza ceasefire plan. Yeah? So several developments. There have been rounds of celebratory gunfire rang into the night sky last overnight, and people cried tears of joy, says the Guardian of London, and disbelief as news of a peace deal reached those in the devastated Gaza Strip, and in Israel, where relatives have anxiously awaited the release of hostages, detained since the war broke out 2 years ago. World leaders and humanitarian organizations and charities welcome the news of the deal, but have also expressed caution. Yeah? The Norwegian Refugee Council, one of the largest independent aid groups working in Gaza, said Trump's plan to increase aid to starving people as part of the deal will fail unless all aid groups can resume operations. The French President Emmanuel Macron said he hoped the Gaza ceasefire agreement will lead to political solution based on the two-state solution. The Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas welcomed the deal and expressed hope that these efforts would be a prelude to reaching a permanent political solution. And one of the far-right voices, extreme voices in the Israeli government, the finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, said on Thursday that the militant group Hamas must be destroyed after the return of hostages from Gaza. Now, that's one of the extreme voices who seem to have a permanent interest in just maintaining the war. Yeah? So, it's good news. I could not begin the program, and not pause to point out that, listen, this is happening in the world. It's a good day. It's a good development. There's a long history of hope in the Middle East conflict, and in a matter of hours, that hope is shattered. Yes. Mr. Trump, President Trump. I see a television report out of Hostage Square in Israel this morning, where the relatives of the hostages still being held in Gaza were chanting, "Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize." He covets that. He wants that. Yes? And frankly, he will be a contender if this peace deal were to hold. The Nobel Peace Prize is scheduled to be announced sometime this weekend, tomorrow, in Norway. I don't know if it will, given what we have learned so far. I think that is enough to give Trump the Nobel Prize for Peace. He covets it, he wants it, he says so. That would make him the first American president to get the Nobel Prize for peace after Barack Obama got it in 2009. All right? Now, coming home, the